Elden Ring, developed by From Software, is an open-world action RPG that builds upon the studio's successful formula for environmental storytelling, atmospheric world design, and punishing difficulty. As players traverse the game world, they encounter many enigmatic figures. Among them, the Chanting winged names stand out as enemies whose diegetic singing transforms them into embodied performers as well as deceptive threats. In this presentation, I will examine these creatures through the lens of mythology and ludomusicology to present how Elden Ring uses their singing voice and monstrous depiction to subvert player expectations and reinforce its themes of loss and betrayal. Elden Ring takes place in the vast and interconnected world of the lands between. Players can freely explore this open-world environment and progress through the story and battles in an order that largely depends on their choices. The game's world is very interactive, allowing the players to find points of interest throughout the environment, including friendly and hostile NPCs. The main characters of Elden Ring are known as the Tarnished, player-created individuals who were exiled from the lands between after losing the grace of the Earth Tree. Now they are called back to reclaim that grace and seek the mantle of Elden Lord. On the journey to become Elden Lord, Tarnished characters face a wide variety of enemies occupying different sections of the lands between. The diverse portrayals and behaviors of these enemies not only challenge the player's combat skills, but also contribute to the rich lore and atmosphere of the lands between. One of the most striking examples is the Chanting winged names, who employ diegetic singing to draw players in and intensify their emotional engagement by subverting their expectations. Their vocals exemplify what Alexander Kolassa, in his analysis of Bloodborne, calls the disruptive materiality of monsters, where music feels like it's part of the body itself, creating a sense of physical horror rather than simply shaping the space around it. The Chanting winged names' human-like singing collapses the boundary between humanity and monstrosity, thereby reinforcing the name's function as ambiguous figures whose voices intensify the player's sense of unease and evoke the game's themes of loss and betrayal. What sets Chanting winged names apart from other enemies is that their presence is usually signaled not visually but sonically. It is through their haunting vocal performances that players first become aware of them. Kolassa further argues that monsters of Bloodborne are indivisible from the music that sustains them and the sounds they make. These sonic qualities are as much part of their being as the many arms that try to grab you or the bodily fluids they spew. These sonic traits of Chanting winged names are not merely atmospheric, but integral to the creature's bodily and narrative presence. The Chanting winged name enemy in Elden Ring evokes many layers of intertextuality. This humanoid creature, with its bat-like wings and human facial features, has an eerie appearance that recalls the harpies of Greco-Roman mythology. In Greek mythology, harpies were typically depicted as winged women with the bodies of birds, though their faces varied, sometimes appearing alluring while at other times grotesque or monstrous. The Chanting winged name embodies many of these mythological traits, from her hybrid form to her unsettling presence. In addition, she also benefits from the enchanting singing voice of sirens. In Elden Ring, the Chanting winged names are typically found in secluded areas where they engage in the meditative recitation of ancient Latin chants. This peculiar blend of characteristics makes them one of the game's most distinctive enemies that embody a complex mix of human and monstrous traits. Their hybrid form also recalls the Siren and Alkonos from Slavic mythology, two iconic bird women figures known for their enchanting voices. The Siren, whose name and traits are derived from the Greek sirens, was often portrayed as a bird with a woman's head who sang such beautiful songs that listeners would forget everything and follow her to their doom. Her counterpart, the alchemist, sang melodies so calming and otherworldly that they could bring peace or blissful forgetfulness to their listeners. Duygu Ozakin, in Origins of Woman-Headed Birds in Russian Folklore, argues that these mythic figures represent a duality, day and night, life and death, and joy and sorrow, thereby playing an important role in the Russian Silver Age's poetic imagination. The chanting winged dames evoke the same dualism. Their mournful hunting songs lull the player into a false sense of safety before violently attacking them, much like the siren's deadly song. At the same time, their sorrowful singing reminds us of the alchemist's calming voice, a voice that provides players with a moment of solace in a world filled with chaos and decay. By incorporating both danger and illusion of peace through music, they mirror the emotional ambiguity and tragic grandeur of these Slavic archetypes, which adds to their mythological complexity. Compared to the siren and alchemist, the chanting winged dames are different because of their age. They appear as wrinkled old women, something that when coupled with an unsettling face reminds us of witches and crones from medieval literature. As Lyndall Roper argues in Witch Craze, such witches and crones reflect anxieties about procreation, motherhood, age, and the fragility of fertility, fears that often fueled stories of witchcraft. In many stories, including Macbeth, witches were not merely ominous, but played a leading role in the downfall of humans with ambition. As Roper notes, it was mostly older women who became the targets of witch crazes, and this association between age and lack of fertility continues to shape how elderly women are imagined in art, literature, and popular culture. In her book Monstrous Feminine, horror theorist Barbara Creed identifies the witch as one of the recurring faces of the monstrous feminine, a figure whose very body signals cultural anxiety about female power, aging, and being seen as cast out. She argues the horror of these figures lies not simply in their monstrosity, but in their gendered associations. Old, non-reproductive, powerful women who challenge patriarchal ideals of femininity. Reading the chanting winged dames through this lens, their wrinkled faces and bent bodies change the old stories of beautiful bird women into a show of physical decay that makes old age seem scary or threatening. But it is their voice, not their body, that truly unsettles. Their haunting vocals in Latin are used as an oral device to mislead players into thinking these creatures are peaceful and approachable. As Rebecca Roberts notes in Fear of the Unknown, music and sound design in psychological horror games, music in horror settings is rarely used as incidental backing music. Instead, it is intended to convey atmospheric moods and provide sonic instructions to the players. These instructions are part of the spatial design of sound, which creates another dimension for the players to exist within, and helps them locate danger through directional cues, particularly when the threat remains unseen. She continues that sonic signifiers are often the only real indication of approaching danger, and the audio designers frequently use these basic conventions against the players. In Elden Ring, the first time this beautiful chanting is heard, players may assume that a friendly NPC is nearby, ready to welcome them with a soothing voice. However, as they move closer and discover the source, their expectations are shattered in an instant. The game subverts sonic cues to produce a sense of shock and betrayal, thereby introducing elements of horror that unsettle the player and destabilize their sense of safety within the game world. This betrayal is further intensified for players familiar with From Software's earlier titles, particularly Dark Souls 2, In that game, a similar song is sung by Milfanito, a group of innocent women whose comforting voices calm the suffering of the undead. This short clip from Dark Souls 2 shows the Milfanito singing in a calm, peaceful setting, which reflects their role as gentle healing figures in the game. In this example, the music's consonance sets a tonal reference point that aligns with player expectations. Conversely, Elden Ring challenges player expectations between consonance and level of threat to heighten the emotional impact of the theme. By twisting the player's expectations of safety, Elden Ring transforms a familiar experience into one of betrayal and fear. This moment exemplifies how Elden Ring uses intertextual sound design and enemy behavior to challenge player assumptions by reconfiguring their relationship to prior knowledge and the role of music in constructing meaning. Another aspect that enhances the player's experience in these encounters is the intermixture of diegetic and non-diegetic sounds. The subtle music that plays in the background mixes with the dame's chanting very well, blurring the boundaries of external and internal. Their chanting feels like part of the world and is a direct communication with the player. As Jennifer Smith notes in Vocal Disruptions in the Oral Game World, the female entertainer in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Transistor, and Divinity Original Sin 2, when playing through a game for the first time, sounds and music are new and unfamiliar to the player, but are consistent within the soundscape. While the player is unfamiliar with the content of the soundscape, the overall consistency of the sound design provides orientation and coherence. Smith further argues that the inconsistent use of voice within a soundscape thus frames any diegetic performer as a disruption to both the continuity of a story and sound, although such inconsistencies are not always detrimental to player enjoyment. In this case, the chanting wingdames's voices do exactly that. They disrupt the sonic consistency to capture attention and create a heightened emotional response without diminishing overall immersion. Smith adds that these personal performances and vocalizations bring unexpected interaction between player and storytelling. The pause in gameplay's rhythm showcases the significance of the characters, and therefore the player's engagement through song and a further personal backstory. The dame's chants, which seems to voice the personal laments and stories, serve as both oral cues and narrative devices, creating a pause in the flow of the game that deepens the player's connection to the game's themes of loss and sorrow. Much like the female entertainers identified by Smith, the chanting wingdames blur the line between diegetic and non-diegetic sounds and enhance the emotional complexity of the experience. Their presence, both visually and orally, exemplifies how musical voice can transcend its traditional role and become an important force in shaping the storytelling within video games. Support for this project is provided by the Game Music 101 Research Group. This project is also supported by funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada.